Property managers. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how property managers are using AI voice technology to save 15 plus hours per week so they can actually spend time growing their business. What would you say is one of the biggest pain points you hear from property managers when it comes to phone calls?
Yeah, that's a great question. Two biggest places where property managers receive a lot of phone calls. The first one is obviously lease inquiries. There are lots of property managers that have big portfolios. So anytime you have a big portfolio, you have at least 10 to 20% of your portfolio that's vacant sitting on the market. And, a lot of these portfolios, these rental units are on various different websites. And even though a lot of these websites have all the information of that unit, people still like to call in. And I've received that information or that piece of data from so many different property managers that they will receive phone calls for the same thing over and over again. Hey, what's the pet policy on this thing? What's the minimum lease terms? What's the address of the place? Even though the first line says the address. So some really obvious things that are there in the listing, they will still receive phone calls about it. A lot of these property managers are there answering these questions over and over again because they don't want to miss out on what could be a lead, right? Because you have no idea who's going to be that person that's like, that's the property that I'm looking for. Let's schedule a booking and eventually turn that into an actual lease. So lease inquiries is a huge pain point that a lot of property managers face, not because they don't want to answer the phone, they don't want to answer the same question over and over again. And then the second one being, actually, let me finish that thought first and double down on the fact that it's not that they don't want to answer the phone. They would like something like in front of them to triage that phone call. So AI technology would be the best technology to triage those phone calls and only send them qualified leads so AI can answer those questions over and over again, right? AI never gets tired, never takes vacation, never takes a day off. It can answer the same questions, 1,000 times in a row. And moreover, it can basically make sure that that person is satisfied with that answer. And then once they are satisfied, take them to the next step in the process whenever they are ready for it. And then the next piece of the puzzle is answering maintenance requests. A lot of these maintenance requests are not emergencies. And a lot of these maintenance requests are usually like the same maintenance requests over and over again. Hey, my toilet's backed up, or the light bulb's out, or like, hey, how do I, like one property manager was telling me, like he received a phone call while he was at his daughter's, softball game. This, tenant was calling and asking, hey, where's the light switch for the back porch? It's like, look for it. That can't be that hard to find. But they're receiving these maintenance requests that aren't emergencies that can possibly be answered by an AI that has all of this information already and that can help them triage these maintenance requests and only funnel the ones that are emergencies or only funnel the ones that need to be addressed on a very timely basis. Because A, they could be an emergency. B, it could be something like a broken AC or a water heater or something like that. That's not an emergency, but still needs to be addressed. And the third one is, it's like, have they tried using a plunger if their toilet's backed up, right? Stuff like that can easily be answered by an AI.
I mean, just to your point, it's just not a good for a lot of these property managers. There's a lot higher value activities that you and your team could be focused on when you're not dealing with the same mundane things that are probably answering the same types of questions that could be solved by someone just checking their lease agreement. Did I read correctly that property managers spend on average 15 to 25 plus hours a week, something like that, on just routine calls?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is an industry average, and you can solve for that by hiring another person. A lot of property managers either hire assistants locally or they end up hiring VAs virtually. I think the virtual VA thing is, odd working hours or maybe sometimes language barrier or just different foreign accents. It can work, but it's also pretty expensive. And you could easily solve that with voice AI technology like Voxtell AI because, you know, it never takes a vacation or never sleeps. It's available 24/7. And it's good enough, and it's getting better, but it's good enough that it can take the place of a person to triage those phone calls. I'm not saying that it can do everything, but it can triage phone calls. It can book appointments over the phone, or at the very least, like we have an integration with Show Mojo. So at the very least, it can send you a link and you can book an appointment right there on your phone based on what's convenient to you. So it can do a lot what a human can with deep integrations into property management software without you have to hiring, without you needing to hire another person.
Yeah, and some of the conversations that I've had with property managers, it seems like there's two primary areas where they deal with a lot of ongoing communication. So one of those areas is obviously going to be in the property management itself. Handling maintenance requests is a big one for a lot of people. But then there's also, when tenants are moving out, but there's also when tenants are moving out, property managers are often tasked with having to find new tenants. And so what it seems like tends to happen is there can be an overwhelming amount of, once you get to a certain level, there's a lot of maintenance that goes into and a lot of management that goes into taking care of your existing portfolio and also trying to find new tenants that you can't actually do the thing that you really need to do, which is find new doors, new opportunities, new clientele. And it sounds like in many cases, there's an inability to even focus on generating more leads or responding to leads. And so it seems it's kind of a multi-sided coin that there's an opportunity to provide better solutions that just help to streamline things, but also still help you to maintain that level of quality, a certain level of quality that, tenants and the people you interact with appreciate.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head that once you are no longer working in the business, then you have the opportunity to work on the business, which is getting more doors. I think every property manager wants to grow and get more doors, especially once they have some of the systems dialed in. I was talking to one property manager last week, and I think he's at like 90 doors, and he's like, oh, I want to be at 150 doors. But he also realized that he's at the perfect time to be doing this business because most probably he can grow his business without hiring more people, which means that there's more overhead. And he can actually leverage technology like ours to grow his business, where it keeps his costs low and his profit margin higher, which means that he can, provide a better life for his family while growing his business and also not being inundated with calls 24/7. Like for example, he has more time to spend with his kids at their soccer game and not always be by his phone answering maintenance requests or the repetitive leasing questions.
Let's see, can you tell me about the 3 a.m. emergency calls that don't turn out to actually be emergencies?
Yeah, and this goes back to the example that I was just giving. Whether it's a 3 a.m. call or you're with your loved ones, you're like celebrating a birthday of your kid and you're receiving a phone call and it's about something that can easily be triaged by an AI. If you had a person in that role, even if it wasn't you, like the owner of the property management business, and if you had a person, they have their lives too, and they don't want to be by their phones, specifically not at 3 in the morning, right? No one wants to be woken up by a maintenance request at 3 o'clock in the morning, and especially when it's not an emergency. So I think AI technology is the best technology to come around to field those kinds of calls, especially, like I said, I keep repeating, but like when they're not an emergency, right? It's like, oh, hey, our AC went out. It's like, well, let me help you triage that, what that looks like. Like, let me take you through a series of questions regarding what does that mean? Did you accidentally, change the settings on your AC or, maybe you hit a different dial or, like at least walk you through some of the steps to understand what the problem is and whether it is an emergency or not an emergency and whether we can send someone out. And if AI cannot answer that question right there and there. We can always put in safeguards. It's like make sure you transfer to a human. Make sure that you are scheduling an appointment in the system. So all of those things can be built into the AI, so that no person is woken up at 3 in the morning.
I remember there was one time in an apartment I used to live in Texas where I can't remember what the emergency was, but I tried to get a hold of maintenance like in the middle of the night and I hit a voicemail and it was I got to tell you, one of the most frustrating experiences where you have like a flood going on and you're just like, I don't know who the hell to call. And so at that point, I just start looking up numbers online associates with the property that can possibly get me through to the right people. And it just goes to show you, even if you have systems in place, human error is always possible. And it's possible that, even if someone tries, something happens, like, you end up with a hitting voicemail. Like that's a really terrible experience for tenants.
I agree. Hitting voicemail, especially when you feel like it's a crisis, it's the worst feeling in the world. And at the same time, we don't want to be very impersonal. At the end of the day, this is a very relationship-oriented business, and the better service you provide to your tenants, the more they are going to recommend your property management business, and the more the owners are going to recommend your property management business to the other owners. So that's why we have safeguards like, hey, if you find that the caller is sounding frustrated and is getting angry, like make sure that you transfer this call to a human so that a human can take over and deal with their problem. Because if we don't want this to go into just like a black box, right? We don't want the AI to be a black box. We want it to be an on-ramp onto a better solution, whether it's booking scheduling some kind of home services visit, or at least talking to an actual person in the property manager's business.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize as well that the property management game is a very competitive landscape. You only have you only have so much opportunity when it comes to management, and you only have so many opportunities when it comes to management. And if you end up in a situation where you're getting those bad reviews, then people aren't going to bring you on to manage their properties. So reputation is incredibly important. And I think one of the objections we get all the time, which is around plugging in an AI in replace of a human. And actually, what we found is two things. Is one, the AI technology has just gotten a lot better to where people actually really don't mind the AI. They actually really like it because it does what it needs to do, which is it listens to them, understands them, asks the right questions, gets all their information, and gets their solution solved, whether it be, submits their maintenance request to the team and has, calls in the right team to come out and fix it, or they schedule an appointment for a property. And so they get where they want to go, they feel understood. And what we found is that's actually maintaining a level of quality that oftentimes human beings actually get wrong, right? And especially if you're relying on human beings that are not working 24/7, that are not available all the time, that also, they go out for lunch, they, go on vacation. It's one of those situations where you end up going from a place where you're actually able to provide a higher level of satisfaction because you're available 24/7, and whoever's calling you, they get the resolution or the outcome that they need. So I think that's a huge thing for them. And of course, it allows them to maintain a higher degree of professionalism. We actually have guidelines on how people can transition into having AI be more at the forefront of their business. But, in most cases, we're finding it's yes and not just either or. So it's really help people do their better job. And of course, if there's instances where there are emergencies, those can very easily get escalated to the right parties. And if someone really wants to chat with the human, they certainly can.
I think you made a really good point there by saying that we have guidelines on implementing these AI agents, which we do. We always recommend all of our partners and clients to start using it on the nights and weekends first, so that they can actually prove that the AI assistant is working for them and according to their own guidelines and their business requirements and specifications. And once they've proven that, then they can make it run 24/7. The other question that we get all the time is like, Does it sound natural to callers, or do the callers know that they're talking to the AI? You've interacted with our AI several times. Like, what did you think?
Yeah, first time I heard it, I was actually pretty blown away. To be frank, I my experience in the past when I had heard AI voices, they always sounded really robotic and mechanical, and not gonna lie, like it took me a moment to realize that it was actually an AI. But at the same time, like I've realized like you can train these voices to sound, you know, more in alignment with whatever your brand guidelines are and how you want to communicate as a business. But yeah, my first impression of the AI was like, wow, that's crazy. So the technology has come a long way, and I think that's we're at a point where it's only going to get better. And I think one of the things that I think is so cool is there's systems in place to be able to integrate all of your existing business information, your guidelines, all your information on your properties, and so it's able to comb through that, you know, in real time, and it's able to link up to your existing system. So it's almost like having, you know, an assistant that really is there, you know, taking, you know, those calls, which obviously just frees up your time to be able to focus on the important things, whether it be other important things in business or, you know, like you were saying, go to your child's soccer, be able to go to your child's soccer game or, you know, go on vacation. So I know for a lot of business owners that we work with, it's hard to feel like you can take off time
Yeah.
because you just feel like, you know, things are going to go wrong, and you feel like you have to constantly be overseeing your business. And so I personally resonate with that. And so for me, anytime I'm able to implement something that's able to help me actually free up my time and I can actually have peace of mind that it is taken care of, it's the best feeling in the world. It's the best feeling in the world. So I think that's, if anything, that's something that I'm excited about with this technology. It's like, yes, building your business is important, growing your income is important. That being said, I think the goal of earning a living is to be able to live. When you have technology that allows you to focus on the things that actually matter, you know, and you utilize your time to the best of your ability, then I think that changes everything. So question for you: do property managers need to replace their whole phone system for this, or what does that look like with in terms of
Yeah, and
implementation?
that's an excellent question. No, you don't need to replace your phone system. You don't need to replace your phones. What happens when you sign up first for Voxtell AI is that you get a new phone number. Either you can redirect your calls to that phone number or start giving out this phone number where, and like I said, our system is designed so that if there are any escalations, the AI can transfer the phone call to your team members or to you. So yeah, this new phone number that you'll get can become your de facto new phone number for your business that you can give out to everyone, or you can start redirecting calls from your existing phone number to the AI.
So there's property management software like Appfolio, and I think Buildium is another one. How does this integrate with that?
Yeah. So we have an integration currently with Appfolio and ShowMojo. We're working on Buildium so it can pull directly listings from Appfolio. And so when we first set up your voice AI assistant, it pulls in the listings and it can speak to the listings based on whatever you have in Appfolio. And the same thing with ShowMojo, we can pull your listings from there. And when people say like, hey, I want to schedule a showing, text them a link to Show Mojo and they can schedule their showing there. You know, you don't have to have a human interact in this case. If someone calls in, it can give them details about the listing from Appfolio and directly send them a link to Show Mojo to schedule a showing. As far as Buildium, like I said, we're working on that integration and we should have that pretty shortly.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the setup process when it comes to setting up an AI voice assistant like this?
Yeah, you know, a lot of SaaS software kind of like give you the software and they kind of leave you alone or leave you high and dry, as they say. But what we're doing right now is we're doing white glove custom setup for each customer that onboards with us. Now, this is a value of $2,500, right? Because it takes a lot of work from us where we are, you know, in the understanding the client's business, understanding where their data lies. We need to understand whether we need to do some custom integration. Like I said, we do integrations currently with AppFolio and working on Buildium, but there's a lot of property management software out there, like Doorloop or Rentvine, or I can't even name. There's lots of other software out there. So we need to understand, like, hey, where's this data living? And do we need to do a custom integration? Can we have the client upload all of their data just using Excel files or CSV files or something like that? And trying to understand like what their needs are with triaging these phone calls. So there's a lot of work that goes on our end. The client doesn't have to do a lot of this work. We do a lot of the setup work to make sure that the AI assistant is set up for success for the client and their business. And it takes about like a week or 2 weeks, depending on the complexity of their systems and their business and how big their business is. We are dealing with clients as big as 500 to 1,000 doors.
Yeah, so that's something I'm curious about. If I'm coming from more of a non-technical background, a lot of this just sounds way over my head, just sounds really complicated. And honestly, like, I'm worried if someone gave me the keys to this, I don't even know if I'd know what to do. So,
Yeah. And as far as our system goes, like our platform, if you know how to use email, you can use Voxtell AI. I don't think our system is that complicated. It's just that initial setup of the assistant and making sure that the assistant is set up for success. And as we're setting this up for you, we will train you on it. Like I said, the platform itself, the Voxtell AI platform, is not that hard to use. If you can use email, you can use our platform. Make sure that the AI assistant is set up for success, and you can start extracting value from it from the get-go.
so Bodhi, for a lot of property managers, they may not be the most technical in their understanding, and the idea of something like this may seem just a little bit much. And so what would you say to people that are maybe not wanting to jump in, that's really complicated?
Sure. Yeah. And I can understand that this seems daunting, right? Because it's like new technology, and I'm talking about all of the setup and integration and all that. Just to let folks know, they don't have to do anything. We will come in, we'll ask them a few questions, we'll ask them where their data sits and all of that stuff. We are going to do all the setup for them. They don't have to do any of this work. It's very low effort on their part, maybe an hour or two. The rest of the work is on our part to make sure that we're setting them up for success. We will do the integration. We'll make sure that the AI assistant knows where all the data is. We will do all of that work for our clients. We just want to make sure that they partner with us. Test out the AI assistant just by calling it. Like you make a phone call to anything, just call your own AI assistant, ask it the questions like you think your customers would ask it, and then come back to us and give us that feedback. And we will refine it and we'll tweak it for you. And we'll make sure that your AI assistant is set up for success for your business and you're extracting value from it from the get-go.
Can you share a little bit more about the customization? How customizable is this tool?
So, it all depends, right? Because a lot of it is context engineering or prompt engineering, where we're trying to give it your brand tone and voice. And some of the basics are very customizable. Like, hey, who do you want this AI assistant to be called, right? In our demo, we called our AI assistant Riley from this fictitious property management company called We Manage It. So that when it's answering the phone, it's like it knows its own persona and who it's representing. And then certain aspects of like how friendly it should be. Should it be like not repeating things? Like all of those things we can tweak and give that AI assistant personality that fits your brand and fits your persona, and it fits how you want it to represent your business. And then the integration piece is really our amazing engineering team. We have an amazing team of engineers that can go in and integrate with various different property management software or any other software that you use. We can't promise that we will integrate with every single piece of software out there, because we also want to use our resources wisely. So we will prioritize the big ones first. And that's what we've been doing with Appfolio and Buildium and maybe a couple of others down the line. But that's what we're basically doing is we're making sure that we're creating the right assistant for your business that represents the brand and tone and voice. And then we're making sure that we integrate with the right systems so that when your customers start calling this AI assistant, they can get the information that they need, or the AI assistant can triage those calls for you and only send the qualifying calls to you or escalations to you. So, Paul, maybe you can speak to results and ROI a little bit because that's a little bit more of your wheelhouse. So, what kind of results can property managers expect from implementing technology like Voxtell AI?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I mean, if you look at the data, you have property managers spend, anywhere from 10 to 15 hours all the way up to, possibly 20, 25 hours a week managing calls from tenants and owners. That's a massive amount of time commitment. And so the first thing we look at is just the opportunity cost of saving that time and giving that time back to the manager. And so, like, that within itself, we realize has a compounding effect of enabling more opportunities for that owner to focus on, acquiring more clients, finding more tenants, focusing on revenue producing activities rather than just the active management. So that's first point of feedback that we typically get is just the amount of time that could possibly save and the opportunity that could create for a lot of business owners. There's also, the opportunity of focusing on lead generation and lead management. So for them to acquire new clients, they need to set up their own channels and sales systems to be able to acquire those clients and or tenants. So then they're able to actually prioritize those calls versus the maintenance calls. But yeah, typically, I mean, with something like this, it has the potential to answer literally 100% of your routine calls. So you could expect maybe that correlates to like a 70 to 80% reduction in your time just on the phone. And so those are just massive drops. And so obviously that also enables faster response times to any incoming issue as well. So we find there's a huge ROI impact when it comes to this type of implementation.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see actually some hard numbers. Hopefully, we'll get those pretty soon. Do you think this will have an impact on tenant satisfaction scores?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the common misconceptions is that implementing AI is not something that correlates positively with tenant satisfaction because people assume that people just want to talk to people, which is true. However, people more so want their problem solved or they want to achieve a certain outcome. So if I'm on the market for a new apartment and I call an apartment because I'm interested, I want to get an appointment or a viewing or I want to get more information. And I've had it on numerous occasions where I've been shopping for an apartment and I'm very interested. It's exactly what I want. The price looks great. Now I just want to schedule a viewing. And I call and I can't get a hold of anyone. And so that to me is just like a huge wasted opportunity. But if I was able to get connected to an AI that could at least give me the information on the property, send something over, or schedule a booking, that would have been immensely helpful. And so the core of it is if you're able to provide the right answers and get people where they need to go, whether it be existing tenants or prospective tenants, that has a huge impact on positive satisfaction. So yeah, we're finding it's actually the inverse and it's enabling more of the opportunities. But that being said, if people are in an emergency, which that's the worst case scenario, is there's a flood, you want to call your property manager. Oh, if you get stuck on, like an AI phone tree that doesn't, patch you through to the right place, then that's not what you want. But with our system, it does that. So it knows how to recognize when there are emergencies and how to escalate those and pass calls to the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and then what do you think would be the financial impact? I mean, are we talking about like real savings when it comes to dollars or real money?
Yeah, certainly. So, a lot of property managers, as they're growing, run into this issue where they feel like they need to hire on more people to manage more of their properties. And so with this AI, rather than hiring, you know, rather than hiring people for the sake of hiring, you can now take the resources that you do have and organize them more efficiently. What we find is when you implement something like a Voxtell AI that's taking care of a lot of those routine calls, you're freeing up so much time that the need to hire is a lot lower. And so you have the savings. You're talking, I mean, to hire someone on board, you're looking at a minimum $2,000 to $5,000 a month, plus benefits, plus everything like that. And so we find there's a huge savings when it comes to just the people management. But then when you talk about the time you're freeing up for you and your team to focus on client acquisition, tenant acquisition, there's huge upside in what can be gained in terms of being able to utilize your resources more efficiently and just focus it on, like I said, things that can actually generate you revenue, get more doors, because that's at the end of the day like what you ultimately want to try to do. We've talked to a few property management companies that they kind of hit this plateau, and it's because for a long time it was either them as a solo shop or as a small team. One of their selling points early on was, hey, if you need anything, here's my cell phone number. Call me anytime you need. Now that makes sense early on when you want to try to differentiate yourself, but once you get to a certain point of number of doors you're managing, it's just not efficient anymore, and you end up shooting yourself in the foot. So, like I said, we do have guidelines in place and how you can transition from being the go-to versus to where you can go from being the go-to to actually having better expectations with your tenants and having clearer communication channels on what is going to be escalated to you and what's not. But if you're able to provide the right resources to people and the right opportunities to get in touch with the help they need when they need it, then oftentimes they don't need to connect with you. So we're seeing a lot of great feedback in terms of the opportunities for property managers to take that next step. And so I think that's something that's incredibly exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting indeed. And what would you say to any of the property managers that are kind of on the fence? They're like, I still don't know about this.
Yeah, I'd say if for anyone who's on the fence, like really try it out for yourself, see what it looks like within your business, because it's one thing to interact. It's one thing to interact with an AI, and it's one thing to hear an AI assistant over the phone. It's another thing to hear it applied and working for your business. When you see the level of customization that you have, the opportunities that you have with integrations and the simplicity, I think it's really hard once you turn that on to want to turn it off, especially when you see that it's working so well. And so what I'd say to anyone is really you try it out, see how it goes. But oftentimes I think we get a lot of people who are more pleasantly surprised than anything else. And so yeah, I'd say you got to try it out. I think another important thing for property managers to be thinking about is the degree of involvement that you want in your business and just the opportunities that are being limited because you're tied down with these opportunities. And so I think taking an inventory and a stock of that, and also recognizing that you can step away from managing and taking all of your tenant calls, and you can still have a great level of satisfaction and positive feedback coming from your tenants.
Right.
And so I think you can have your cake and eat it too in that sense. I think what's important for a lot of property managers to understand is that the landscape is changing pretty drastically. You're in a very competitive, low margin business in a lot of ways. And so the need to keep costs low while also maintaining high levels of tenant satisfaction and strong results for your property owners is incredibly important. And so if you have a tool that's able to maximize the places that are inefficiencies while also maintaining the positive reviews that you're looking to get, I think that's a huge opportunity that you can't miss out on. We can see across the board that property managers are continuously seeing how they can level up while also being conscious of their margins. And so the technology is getting better and better. AI is being adopted, not just within the real estate world, but across the board. It's accelerating transformation for a lot of businesses. And there is an aspect of if you don't get if you don't get on board, you can get left behind because it's just the nature of the industry, especially when you're fighting over resources. And the reality is also good talent is also hard. Good talent is hard to come by. So I think those are really important things for property managers to understand.
And the last thing I would add is that the cost of waiting is higher than the cost of starting, because the longer you wait, the longer you're still in your business, doing work in your business, rather than actually creating an opportunity to free yourself up so that you can focus more time on revenue generating opportunities than just like fielding basic calls and routine calls, as you mentioned. So there you have it. This is how property managers can finally break free from phone call overwhelm while delivering better service to their clients. Try out Voxtell AI. It's risk-free. We can even do a 30-day money-back guarantee if you feel doesn't work for your business. So click the button below and see if this is a fit for your portfolio.